Hi, everybody. It's the Poetic Warrior, Dale Walsh. Today we're having another great time with Adam Duval, the original mental health warrior and the leader of our movement. And great to have you here. And just want to say thank you very much, Adam, for showing up today. And one thing I like to do is before we go on is I like to apologize about last week when we had the poets and we had a technical glitch and we missed the show, but we're rescheduling that for June 14th. So that's actually better because the book will actually Love's Invited Guest will actually be out. But let's just do the intro and then we'll get on with the show. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And we're going to have a discussion with Adam about what mental health month was been like in May for mental health warriors. And also, we were thinking that we would like entertain questions on the comments on the comment board and just see what people want to hear us talk about. But first of all, as ever, first of all, Adam, thank you for coming.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, I know it. Well, you always make us feel welcome. So I'll just start with my usual poem. It goes, "Sign of change from heaven. Through holes in trees, I watch lunar eclipse, contemplating the beauty of your lips, asking Jesus the way I can be free and how to realize the ultimate me. But I understand rose grows and God knows. Feeling romance I've always pursued, as through the universe truly shows the essence of love uncovered and nude, naked as a babe at his mother's breast, hungry for nourishment that does sustain development of its infant heart and brain, suckling oblivious of maternal chest, unaware that love is essence of life, no matter how great might be outside strife." So that's my latest contribution to the poetic world. And so, Adam, how are you today?
I am actually really good, feeling really good, energized, shall I say.
Well, that's great to hear. Any particular reason, or just being on a tidal wave of a good feeling, or whatever?
I feel like it is a tidal wave. It really is. Obviously, I've been less stressed. I've been less down. I'm ready to go. And this
And
is
you,
why normally I have my studio in the back, but I thought, you know what? Since we're talking about May, well, obviously me and Kerry took part in the 80-mile walk. Obviously we did have breaks, but 80-mile walk, which is roughly around 6,000 steps a day, all for mental health, and that's exactly what we've been up to. So this is why I thought have this background tonight.
you said 80-mile walk, so
Yeah.
you. And what was that from a concrete place to another concrete place, or just like
It's just walking around doing about 6,000 steps in the day.
Oh, okay, great.
And
So
we
how?
both smashed it. We smashed it.
Well, great. And did you have any like charity that you were doing this for, just for yourself, or what?
No, it's just for awareness.
Oh, awareness. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to be more aware all the time. I'm always talking about mental health with my friends, and I think they get a little tired of me thinking about. But uh, everything, and I just want to say welcome to Guy Burlando and Believe in Yourself. I want to
Robert Brooker, yeah.
thank Believe in Yourself because you're always here and you're always tuning in, and I really appreciate your patronage. But
yeah, that believe in yourself, Dale. He's called Robert Brooker. He's based in Canada.
oh, okay. Well, welcome, Robert. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat because we like to be able to answer them. So, um, the Warriors continue to expand, right, Adam?
It does, yeah. And maybe on one episode, Dale, maybe if you're struggling to find a guest, maybe you can just go solo and start singing to us all.
Reading poetry. Reading poetry.
Would you not sing?
I do karaoke every once in a while.
I know.
But I love being on the stages. So if I can be highlight myself, then so much the better.
Exactly. I wouldn't sing again. I've already done it once live. Never again.
Never again. It didn't turn out well.
Well, I sung at Christmas, and because I had a bet with Caroline Bennis, and she said she'd bet me if for me to sing that I wouldn't do it. But it was the last episode of the year. I thought, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just get it over with. And I did it.
And were you pleased with your performance or not?
Not really.
You aren't ready for Britain's Got Talent yet, right?
Never am, never will.
Well, you have other gifts.
Exactly.
Including your studies. So how's you recently passed the test for, what was it, level 2, level 3, or
level 3 mental health, level 3.
And what exactly did that involve?
That basically talks about all sorts about resilience. It talks about the person-centered approach. Basically, I'm now a qualified mental health therapist.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously I can do that. Obviously, I'm still expanding. I was thinking going into doing level 4, but obviously that will come in time. So now I'm doing SEND level 2, which is special educational needs and disabilities.
Great.
Yeah, and obviously there's 5 units there, and I've just recently passed my first 2.
And so, what, like, when you say these therapists, are you talking about like helping people with depression and anxiety, and do you help like more serious mental illness like bipolar?
Yeah, I can help with all of that, but the only thing I'm not qualified to do is diagnose. I can't diagnose, but I can help them.
And you can't obviously prescribe medication either.
No, I can't do that. No.
Right. So, I guess what you're talking about is basically the equivalent of a social worker or a psychologist.
In a way, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so I see Guy Berlando's here. So if anybody has any questions, just put them in the chat, and we'd be happy to answer them. And one thing you just mentioned that I didn't know is you and Carrie are coming up on your first anniversary on June 9th, right?
Exactly. How I'm alive, I really don't know. But yeah. No. I do admit we have had one of the toughest years we've ever had. It's been tough. If people say once you're married, the first year is a bed of roses, no, you're not. No. It has been tough, and we're just gonna crack on and keep going.
Well, I admire your perseverance, and I guess. Well, how long were you seeing each other before you got married? It was like 6 years, right?
No. Before we got married, we was together 12 years.
Oh, I knew it was
over 12 years. 12 years.
So when you say it's been a tough year, are you talking about internally or externally or both?
I'd say both. Definitely both. Yeah, because obviously it has been hard with obviously homeschooling the kids, dealing with the warriors, dealing with other people's problems, dealing with our own problems and our colleges. So that we're always busy, Dale. Always busy.
I am too, and it's been emphasized how I'm busy with my new business with the financial planning and financial education, which is like something that I'm really learning, leaps and bounds every day. But there's a I guess it's like equivalent of like a level 2 or 3 of when financial planning that I'm doing, but I'm learning every day, and it's been very fulfilling, and it's also gotten me out of my obsession about being a schizophrenic, because I think one of the things that's very important is, and the people have to pay attention to, is that when you get a label, a lot of times you adopt that label as your identity, and it's
Yeah.
not your identity. It's you're a person with the condition rather than you are the condition. And so my new job has been really helpful in getting me out of that negative mindset where I just think of myself as like a schizophrenic, and and I mean, I haven't been symptomized for probably 25 years. I've been 29 years out of the hospital and everything. So, but still that like deep thought inside about, you are your illness, like has haunted me, and I've
Your
been working
subconscious
out of that.
mind, yeah. Your subconscious mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when you have, when you've been programmed by like doctors for like 20 years to think of yourself as like mentally ill.
Come on, Dale. Don't get me started on doctors. We'll be here all day.
I like to. I like to. I like to explore that with you because we don't have questions coming in, so we might as well go for it.
Okay. Then. Hi, Lizzie. Hope you're well. If you've got any questions, go for it. Right. You want to explore doctors with me? Oh, here we go. Right. I'm gonna have to have 5 seconds just thinking about it because last thing I want is this channel being shut down.
Well, well, I think we can talk about them objectively without being too negative. But yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I think doctors are, they. I won't even say they're a necessary evil. They are an essential part of therapy and getting
Yeah.
better. But I think that a lot of especially mental doctors are like so like tied to their training that they lose sight of the human side of their practice, and that's probably why they got into it in the first place.
I just think in reality, doctors are the too quick to jump at medication, prescribing medication when the patient doesn't really need the medication. They just want an ear to listen to them or someone just to talk to them. And obviously with Elizabeth's question, do I feel like doctors truly understand mental health? Straight away, I'm going to say no, they don't.
I I, I agree in to a degree, but it's a very like grayish area because doctors understand the symptomology and the way the sometimes how the illness like manifests, but I don't think they really deal with the feelings within that cause those emotions. And I think in some cases it's because they're afraid to confront their own emotions. They like assume this clinical attitude, and they say, well, I have to be objective and everything. But I mean, more and more doctors are experiencing burnout and everything because not only is the workload becoming overwhelming, but also because they're repressing feelings and that empathy that basically got them to be doctors in the first place, and the desire to help people.
Well, yeah, I agree. And it really does not help, like, with the fact that doctors are very limited to only seeing patients for the maximum of 15 minutes. And if someone, for example, goes in with a mental health condition, whether it's bipolar, schizophrenia, if they feel suicidal, they ain't going to get the full story or get someone to open up within 15 minutes. That's pretty impossible.
Right.
Exactly. And obviously, the reason I'm saying doctors truly do not understand mental health is because the only thing I can do is just talk from experience my own. And I still remember a few years back when I went to the doctors. Obviously, I was doing group therapy through the NHS, which obviously we got over here. And they basically, I said to the doctor, I said, I'm finding this therapy really hard. And straight away he went, right, so why are you doing it then? Really?
Right. Yeah.
Really?
That reminds me of one time one of my doctors said there's nothing wrong with delusion. And I'm like going, what? It's like, what I've been fighting delusion for like 25, 30 years, and now you say there's nothing wrong with delusion. It's like, it's like, where are you coming from? I mean, it's just like, and another point that you brought up, which is the 15-minute visit. I was very fortunate because I was in a program where the doctor gave me I had three 50-minute sessions a week, and we really went into deep therapy and everything. But that gets back not only to burnout because of overload, but also, when you're seeing so much suffering, 15-minute sessions, 8 hours a day, you're seeing so much suffering, and you feel so conflicted because you want to help, but there's really nothing you can do except prescribe medication, and that gets into a whole nother area.
Yeah, well, obviously I've looked at statistics, and this was dated back in 2021, and obviously I'm probably wrong now, but it actually says one person commits suicide every 12 minutes. One person dies every 12 minutes.
Actually, that might have gone up with the pandemic.
I agree.
The pandemic has had a astonishing effect on the state of mental health, not only here and in England, but also throughout the world.
I agree.
So, but yeah, I mean, I now I see my doctor once every 3 months for 15 minutes just to get my medication. But I'm basically self-regulated and self-controlled, and I do have a therapist that I see once a month. But this problem, first off, to become a psychiatrist in the first place, you need 4 years of medical school, and then at least in the United States, and then 3 years of post medical school training to become a shrink. And it's the whole process is, I won't say it's dehumanizing, but it's de-emotionalizing. You get so much in your head that I think a lot of these doctors just forget how to feel with their heart.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, as Lizzie put earlier, even doctors even suffer mental health. Absolutely. We, believe it or not, we all experience some sort of a mental health condition. We all do. But people are just too reluctant and too stubborn to actually accept that.
Right. Well, I think of a Mary Morrissey. I don't know if you know who Mary Morrissey is. She basically is the godmother of American self-development and self-growth movement. But she had a kidney condition, and she almost died because of it. But she said that she believed the doctors because she thought MD stood for minor deity. And I think that, I mean, I thought I was God for 10 years, and but I think that there's sort of an underlying feeling by a lot of doctors that they're better than everybody else, and they aren't. They're just human like everybody else, and they're just as liable to get mental health as anybody. but they hide. They know because they're dealing with it all the time. They know how to hide it. But you know, I don't know what I'm saying, but
Yeah, you do.
I do. It's like, you can't have doctors thinking they're on a big higher plane than all their patients.
I
I mean,
know.
that's not only for mental doctors, that's for like physical doctors too, because they're so well trained that they think that somehow they're better than everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, with no slating the doctors, because even though it never worked for me, doesn't mean it won't work for another person. But if people ask me who my doctor is, I just say myself because I look after myself. If I come down with a cold, like for the past couple of mornings, I've woke up and I've had a dry cough, sneezing, runny nose, and straight away, obviously I haven't got it tonight, but I have a peppermint tea, and then within half an hour after that, I'm fine again.
Right.
So I know how to look after myself.
Well, then that works for like colds and stuff. But
Yeah.
I mean, the necessity of doctor. I mean, one thing that I've been studying is the mind body connection and how the placebo effect. And people say,
Mm,
well, this medication works 2% better than the placebo effect. But the fact is the placebo effect isn't like just it's not a random thing. It's like a very real thing that if your mind can like believe something, then it can reflect in physical reality.
yeah, exactly. I agree. I agree. And as Lizzie put, Dale, you're a smart man.
Well, I appreciate that, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. But I don't want to be on a higher plane than anybody else. I don't want to like say, put the doctors down for being on a higher plane and then put myself on a higher plane. But uh, just yeah, and I'm not putting down doctors. I
No.
think it's a matter of their training and
Yeah.
just their mindset in order to be able to survive that training rather than like something that they do like consciously or viciously or anything. But I think that, doctors have to be, especially as more and more gets learned about the brain and the body mind connection and everything. I think the doctors really have to be open to alternate, paths of healing than the constricted stuff that they learn from Gray's Anatomy.
I agree. I totally agree. And I believe doctors as some are good, some aren't as good, but they could do with better training and always I always believe there's always an alternative to medication. Always. There always is. It's common sense. And that could be therapy, it could be meditation. Meditation is a type of therapy, by the way, but yeah, there's always an alternative.
Well, the thing about that is that, I mean, this brings up another major point that is controversial. But the fact is that not only do the doctors have the training, but also they've been a lot. I mean, they've been programmed to say, well,
Yeah,
the pill is the solution rather than we're looking for the holistic or the natural solution. And so, if you, I mean, for example, ED, their erectile dysfunction, I meant like there are other ways besides Viagra and everything to fix that, and but this dependence on pharmaceuticals and pills is basically insane, because you listen to these ads for these medications and they say, oh, it'll get you out of your manic depression or your bipolar and everything. And then you listen or say, I know there's a cancer drug, that's on the market now that I hear about on the radio. And it says, this will help metastatic breast cancer and it's the greatest product ever. And then they go into the side effects and it says, there are three side effects that can cause death.
yeah,
So, a lot of times I think the cure is worse than the disease,
I
especially with
agree.
a lot of these drugs.
Yeah. Well, this is why I don't take medication, because growing up, I was in and out of hospital every 6 months because I was just too addicted to prescription medication. But now I've gone a few years without it and I feel good.
Well, that's a good thing. Uh,
Yeah.
I was sort of, I'm with my antipsychotic, which I'm very happy with, and I've been taking basically for 42 years. But what used to be when when I would stop within 2 days to 2 weeks, I would be back in the hospital, and they say this isn't addictive, and it's like, come on, it is addictive. I mean, anytime you're like having major chemicals like play with the chemistry of your brain, then your brain adjusts and it gets used to the chemicals, and I mean, like my medication regulates the flow of dopamine in my brain. So so my brain gets used to like a different level of dopamine, and then medication stops, and the dopamine comes flooding back, and it's like, you go psychotic because you aren't ready for the flood of dopamine that's coming into your brain. And so
Yeah.
I think people have to really understand uh, that I mean, even though they say it's not addictive, it is addictive because your brain it transforms your brain into something
Yeah.
that it wasn't, and if you try to stop, and then if you try to like transform it back, then there's going to be problems.
Exactly. And going back to comment about you been dealing with something 42 years, I'm sure you turned 21 last week, Dale. Come on, don't lie about your age now. Come on.
I turned 21 for the 46th time, Adam. Is that It's actually funny you should say that because I did spend my 21st birthday in Hackensack Medical Center.
Wow. There you go.
But well, I don't know if you want to continue. Are there any questions,
There
Robert?
no, no.
Okay. Uh, but so I think that, well, I have a friend and a mentor who is really into like the study of mental health and everything, and she says that like psychiatry is like lagging behind because between neurology and neuroscience and all these
Mm,
other things that are making like great strides, and studying the brain and how the chemicals and everything
yeah.
are
Yeah.
interacting. uh, you know, Psychiatry, I think, has basically been stuck in a paradigm for, basically since, at least since I got sick, and, and once you're out of med school, then people say, well, I don't need further education and everything. And so all these other fields are like making great strides and like helping people with, like with diseases and illnesses, but psychiatry, I think, has basically been stuck for a while.
That's actually given me an idea now, because obviously you said you know someone that knows about the neurological side. I know someone that knows about the neuroscience side. So maybe what we could do is actually connect them both and bring them on a show.
I've thought about that, but my friend has an ironclad commitment at this time on Tuesday, so that's why I haven't had her on the show before. But we could probably work out something. But
Exactly.
another thing is another thing is trauma and the effect of
Mm.
trauma on mental health.
Yeah. Depends what type of trauma you're living with.
Well, they say there are two types of trauma. There's like little t trauma, which is like, you asked for a cookie and your mother said no and said, why did you ask for a cookie, and gets all mad at you and everything. But then there's like major traumas, which are, like child abuse,
Yeah.
and even like physical things like car
Yeah.
accidents, or and so but the more and more they're realizing how trauma is the basis of like not only mental illness but also a lot of physical illness, and just
I agree.
just and you know I'm taking a course with someone who I like to get on the show. Actually, her name is Kayleen Wright, and she's like an expert. She's like a recovered PTSD person, and now she's like totally. She said she's totally cured, and she's written a book about how to heal from trauma and everything. But I think that the whole environment. I mean the brain chemicals, the the trauma, the environment that you grew up in, all these things contribute to mental illness or mental health, as you call it. But the thing is that you know I think that a lot of psychiatry and psychoanalysis just like deals with like one or two aspects instead of taking in the holistic picture.
I agree. And every single day, about 3 times a day, I listen to motivational speeches. So it could be from Buddha, Dwayne Johnson, Steve Harvey, just everyone. I listen to them and really inspiring. And what's inspired me to do to say this is because it actually connects with trauma. And it basically says you cannot change the past. You can't. But what you can change is here and now, and that's what's crucial right now is focus on the here and now, and basically, if you are still living in adversity, which is you're constantly bringing up the past, you're reluctant to moving on, you're never going to experience resilience. You never are. And basically, the question is, if you keep focused on the past, you're going to feel like a failure. You feel this, worthlessness, you're undeserved, and all that. But if you're going to focus on that, you're not going to achieve or experience positivity. You're not,
Well,
and you're not going to experience success either.
that brings up a very important point: is events don't cause trauma. It's how you react to those events that cause trauma.
Exactly, exactly. And with my trauma, I've not forgot about them, and I'll never forget about them. But what I have done is learned to forgive. Obviously, I haven't forgiven the abusers that abused me, but I've forgiven myself because I've moved on from that, and I'm actually more positive now. Where I used to be really tormented and everything I took personal, but now no, because now I'm living my life. I'm living the best I can.
Well, that brings up something that is always on my mind. Is they say that two of the most therapeutic emotions you can have are forgiveness and gratitude. And if you can,
Mhm.
I mean, not only, I mean, and they say that you know when you forgive other people, then you really get. I mean, a lot of times, the people you forgive don't care that you've forgiven them.
No,
Let's be honest. But if you can forgive them, then you can get that trauma off your chest of carrying around what they did to you, or what you feel they did to you, and that like lifts the burden of guilt and shame from yourself. So, and then gratitude works right along with that, and gratitude, I think, a lot of people say that gratitude is like the most important thing you can do for your mental health. But just I think of Ed Milet. You were talking about motivational speakers. I don't know if you know Ed Milet, but he's like a man.
yes, yes.
Well, actually, he's now a billionaire, and he started as a beginner in my company that I'm working for. So
Ah,
we have like all sorts of like access to Ed Milet that other people don't. But what I was going to say is he talks about gratitude and how important it was, and he talks about the time when his life was really in the trash, and he went out with a friend, and his friend said, uh, you know, well, what can you be grateful for? And Ed Milet said, absolutely nothing. I have nothing to be grateful for. And then he said, and then just as I was saying this, two people who obviously had cancer, an older couple walk in, and they toddling past his table, and the lady just smiles at him and says, "Hello, how are you?" And that like really changed his whole perspective because it made him realize I, this came up at lunch today with my friend. She said, I used to complain that I don't have any shoes until I saw someone who didn't have any feet.
Yeah.
And one thing to bear in mind for gratitude is there's always someone out there who's going to be worse off than you. And even if you just say, thank you, Lord, for the sunshine today. Thank you, Lord, for the air I breathe and that keeps me alive. You know, you don't have to be specific and say, well, thank you that you gave me $1 million. Because a lot of times you don't have the stuff to, the material stuff, but just the joy of being alive and the gift of life is something that you can always be grateful for.
Yeah, I want to bring up a couple of points there because they were bang on. Yeah, well done, Dale. But the first one is the fact that if people brought up about the fact that if you're saying to someone, for example, who abused you, you don't forgive them and they don't care. Well, don't make it your problem. That's their problem. You've put that problem onto them, and it's how they want to deal with that. And if they don't want to accept it, fine. Who cares? The only family I have got in my life is my Kerry and the kids. That's
Right.
it. That is it. I don't need anyone else. And not only that, but the second one is the fact that it's all about gratitude and you're right. I had this conversation with my 10-year-old son the other week, and he was basically saying that he felt like he had nothing. And I'm like, right, okay, let's have that conversation. Because at the end of the day, I asked him, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food on your table? Do you have clean clothes every single day? Do you have access to Wi-Fi and technology and all of that? And a warm bed at night? And he said yes to everyone. I'm like, right, now take into consideration people outside that front door aren't so lucky. They haven't got clean clothes. They haven't got warm food every single night. They haven't.
They're living in a cardboard box.
Exactly. There's always people that are going to be worse off than you.
Right.
Do you know what? I'm actually going to look for a status which I actually put quite a bit ago. So I just need to find it. I'm going to be quite a bit here. I bet. Yeah, you may as well just keep talking while I look for it.
So what are you looking for?
I'm looking for this post about that because it was just bang on, which what I've put. Just bear with.
Well, I've always been grateful to God, and every day I'm more grateful to God because because of the nature of my illness and my delusions. For a long time, I was like just convinced that I was the worst sinner ever. I had like this pride of the devil and everything because I said I was God and everything. And for the longest time, I saw nothing wrong with that. And then I did, I had an event in my mind, and I realized how absurd and how sick I really was. And that was like the darkest moment of my life. But ultimately, I just like thank God for having the patience to see me through until I got to see the destructive nature of my delusions.
Right, there you go. I found the post now, and this is what I put. I put it on 24th of May. I put, for all those that are struggling or feeling worthless, I dare you to go to a hospital, go down a corridor, and look at everybody from all different ethnic backgrounds, all different ages, and realize they are fighting something, some fighting to stay alive. I dare you to go down a neighborhood and look at all the homeless people that actually are homeless and realize that they don't have access to food, don't have access to a clean shower or clean clothes. Now, I dare you to look in the mirror after all of that and ask yourselves, are you really worse off?
Very nice. Did you write that or did you just find it?
I actually got it from a motivational speech. Because
Oh, okay.
what I do, and I do it every time, is I listen to the words and I process them. If I feel like they've inspired and touched me on a personal level, I press pause on the video and I write that status. I take those words.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
that's a great meme.
it is. It is. And then obviously another one, which I'm just trying to find. I've put quite a bit. Here we go. Are you experiencing some sort of a mental health issue? Do you have doubts in your life? So, do you see rain and a storm as a negative? Well, if you do, you're not living the best of your ability, and you are not valuing yourself enough. Remember, this rain makes the grass grow. Without rain, flowers don't blossom. See rain and storm as your opportunity to evolve in your life.
Right.
That's
Well,
exactly what it is.
well, then that gets into the more esoteric and maybe specialized question of, you say, well, attitude and perception is everything that is a way to become positive. But if you're like someone who thinks you're being pursued by the FBI, I mean, being pursued by the FBI, and that the CIA is trying to poison your water and has planted a chip in your head that's going to like control you for the rest, then it's very hard to like have a positive perspective. And that's what I try to do in my coaching, is like help people see that, that if their loved one has something like that, rather than like reacting, then it's absolutely necessary to respond and really like try to get to the bottom of the belief and the delusion, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to get rid
Yeah,
of.
I agree.
I mean, when I thought I was God, I would say I was God, and people would just say, "No, you're not." And like nobody ever said to me, and I think this would have been very helpful. He said, "Okay, you're God. So what are you going to do? How are you going to how are you going to help with the world, or what do you plan on doing now that you're God?" And it's like, if people had done that, then it would have made me think, it would have made me see, maybe not that I'm not God, but it would just give me a direction and that was more positive, and say, well, where I could eventually say, well, I might not be God, but I know I'm an instrument of God, which is basically what I've come to the conclusion to. But
Yeah,
it took me 30 years to get there, and if people had just asked more insightful questions, and instead of reacting with their "no, you're not," then say, well, why or how or
yeah,
so.
exactly. I agree.
I
I agree.
think that gets back to our talk about doctors. Is that doctors are like taught to approach a subject in a very like not rigid but straight, routinized way, and instead of doing it, that the doctors really have to get in touch with their own humanity and figure out, what question would I really like to ask these people to try to help them, rather than just saying, well, this is how you're going to be helped. I'm going to write you this prescription.
Yeah, exactly. Doctors just get told what to do. That's all they do. They just get
Right.
told what to do. They're they're
Well,
just they're just victims of the system like everybody else. That's how I see it.
they just think they aren't. They think they're above the system, or they think they're,
Let's not go there.
well, they think they're part of a higher system.
Yeah, let's not go into the system.
Okay, well, what I want to, I'll veer from the system, but we'll talk. This idea that knowledge is power, and knowledge isn't power. The application of knowledge is power, and a lot of people like Bob Proctor, who recently
Yeah,
died, but he always said, knowledge isn't power. It's how you apply power. It's how you apply knowledge that creates power, and I think that's very true. But
it
you know,
is.
we live in we live in a society where knowledge is treated as intelligence, and it's definitely not. I mean, I used to play Trivial Pursuit at my bar every week, and it's like people said I was a genius just because I knew a lot of facts, but you know, knowledge, facts isn't knowledge. Knowledge is facts mixed with wisdom and insight.
Well, how I'll just see it is obviously with everyone from the example Les Brown, Bob Proctor, Dwayne Johnson, Buddha, Jim Carrey, all these inspiring people. Just remember, it's just their perception on things. We have all got our own perception on day-to-day things. We all do. Just like for example, a book. Someone wrote a book, like for example, about I don't know from I can't even think. I can't even think from top of my head. But yeah, that person that wrote that book, that's their perception on things. We've
Right.
all got one. So in
And
my view, there's no right and there's no wrong answer.
but that's a, I mean, well, this gets into a much deeper question about is there such a thing as absolute truth? Because and ultimately, truth for every person is how they perceive things. So there are like 7 billion truths, and if there are 7 billion people, but there's also I believe, whether you want to call it God, I mean, or whatever you want to call it, I believe there is a higher truth that we all aspire to, but we have to get through the maze of our perceptions in order to perceive that. And I think and that's a lot of work, and a lot of people just don't want to do the work to really
No,
get to that higher truth.
no, exactly. And for those people that don't want to do the work, question what is that actually achieving in the long term?
Right.
Because the only person that can actually start on that road to success is yourself. Nobody can do it for you.
But getting back to Ed Milet, Ed Milet says, when I get to heaven, I'm going to meet my twin, for my spirit twin for this life, and well, he said I'm going to meet the person who I could have been on this earth, and he says I want to be a twin to that person of what I could have been, instead of someone who didn't measure up to that standard. I think that's something that like a lot of people can think about is like at the end of your life, you want to just say, well, I worked 50 years for, and I made $100,000 a year, or people that people realize that's not really the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to fulfill what God put you here. And uh, another person I follow is this guy named Peter Sage, and he says every human is like, is a $1 in 400 million shot. So,
Yeah.
I mean, apparently there are like $400 million sperms. 400 million sperms that can fertilize an egg, but there's only one that gets to fertilize the egg. So,
Exactly.
just from the very beginning, you're the winner of a $400 million jackpot by being born. And people should realize that. And I know people might think I'm full of it, but you
No,
know
you're not.
you just have to be certain of like every person is unique and special, and I used to like try to like really emphasize my uniqueness And I think that's why I got sick the way I did. But and I can't. I've come to realize that even though I have a different story, it's not it's part of my uniqueness rather than, but it doesn't make me better than anybody.
No, absolutely, and obviously, like me and you, we've got our own different views on a few topics, but I respect you, Dale, for what you do and what you accomplish. And all I would say is thank you.
Well, I thank you too, Adam, not only for giving me this opportunity to be a mental health warrior, but also for giving me a mirror to hold up to see my own fight.
Exactly, exactly. But even then, we don't need to fight. We don't. All we're doing is just keep growing and growing and growing, and that's all I've seen from you from the last 9 months. It's
Well,
growth.
when I say fight, when you have a mental illness and you're always in competition, you're always fighting yourself because you have to keep
Yeah,
the healthy side going, and that's a
absolutely.
because sometimes it's a lot easier to just throw your arms up and say I'm not going to fight it anymore. And what's the result of that? Psychosis and the hospital and possible permanent. I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of is that I was hospitalized 15 times and I got out 15 times.
Exactly. And there's not going to be a 16th.
No, it's been
No,
a it's been 29 years basically. So
exactly. So that means we need to have a party for you when you get to your 30th anniversary.
it'll be next January.
There you go. There you go. But going back in reality though, to all those people that don't want to do anything with their life, just remember when you do nothing, you get nothing.
I'd just like to acknowledge Robert here. He says, "Yes, thank you, Dale. I savor those moments when you accept my inclination to laugh." And I think laughter is probably the most healthy thing you can do. And when I was a kid, when I was younger, I used to laugh all the time, and then it was basically beaten out. Well, like sort of programmed out of me by my therapy, and so I'm still trying to like get back to the place where I can laugh all the time. I'm getting there, and I'm a much more joyful person than I was at the height of my therapy. But basically, I'm glad that I can get you to laugh, Robert, because that's a very good thing, and it's very enlightening too.
Exactly, exactly, and obviously, as one of our guests who was on it before, he's called Pete Can, and like he's been on a couple of times, and he basically reminds people that children laugh between 200 and 300 times a day, but us adults we seem to forget to do that.
Right. Well, one of my guests was Dr. Bill Pettit, and he's like one of my favorite psychiatrists ever, and he says, I find that if I haven't laughed before noon every day, then I'm taking myself too seriously.
Exactly, exactly. And even then, if you're taking yourself too seriously every single day, what are you achieving? Because if we're all serious all the time, what world would this be?
Right. Well, one thing that I'm finding is that I'm making more and more people laugh as I get better. I mean, people say, you're extremely funny. I said, well,
You
and but when I was in the program, I would find that the more depressed I was, the more funny people thought I was. So and that's where like my catch 22 is like, I I feel that in order for me to like be able to like make people laugh, I have to be, or at least I used to. The more depressed I was, the funnier I was. So, but now I'm working on just telling my story in like an enlightened point of view, so that I can make people laugh while I'm laughing with them.
exactly, and that's how it works.
This is very funny. Robert says, "Without laughter, we would become the federal government."
Don't get me started on that either. Come on, Robert.
But
He's
okay,
trying to
well,
get he's trying to get this channel shut down already.
yeah. But I don't know if Guy Briolando is still here, but we're down to our last 5 minutes. So how should we sum this conversation up? It sort of like took a serious turn, but I think it was a good turn.
Absolutely. It is. I would just say just keep growing. And if you need any assistance, if you feel negative, just remember you're enough. You're enough, you're enough, you're enough. And just keep saying positive affirmations to yourself until you finally believe them.
Right. Well, that's very good. That's extremely good advice. And also, just if you find yourself that you're getting down on yourself, or if you find you're like thinking negative thoughts, and the first thing you have to do is become aware that you're thinking negative thoughts. So before the affirmations, you just like notice your thinking and really like monitor yourself, especially if you have a tendency towards depression or something. Just monitor yourself, and if you say, why I'm no good, then just like if you hear that thought coming into your head, then just like capture it and say, I'm not going to think that anymore. I think I'm going to say, I'm enough. I'm a good person, and self-worth and self-esteem is like a very like tough topic, but uh, you know, I think that a lot of people compromise with life because they just don't have the self-esteem and the self-worth that they need.
I agree. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you, especially Robert, for all your comments. And I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I see that we have a thumbs up and a heart and everything, so that's a good thing. And thank you
Yeah.
very much for joining me, Adam. I'm any shows you want to promote or?
The only show I'm actually aware of is I think there's only 2 left this week, and that is tomorrow night. Kerry's live. She's got. Let me just get hold of the TV guide. Just bear with. Yeah, tomorrow at 8 p.m. UK time, so it's not 10:30 a.m. It's at 8 p.m. UK. Kerry's back with author Mary Nixon Hahan, and then 8:30 at a later time of 8:30 p.m. I know the TV guide says 8 p.m., but it's actually pushed an extra half an hour. So 8:30 p.m. when Warriors of Attraction with yours truly is back with my co-host Andrea Evans, who you really need to get on the show. She's a diamond, Dale. She really is. And we are going to be talking with the transformational coach and former warrior, Melissa Christie.
Okay, great.
We're bringing Melissa back onto the show.
All right. Great. Well, everybody, we're almost at time, but thank you, first of all, Adam, for joining me. And
Pleasure.
I talked more than usual this week, but that's okay. I got some things off my
Talking's good. Talking's good. People can't shut me up.
Yeah. But okay, well, everybody have a great weekend, and or actually have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. And as I say, we rescheduled the program with my poet friends, my poetic collaborators, for June 14th. So we hope to see you there, and have a great one. Bye.